down. What's all this other stuff? Cauda equina, literally horse's head or horse's hair or horse's tail, cauda equina. So the spinal cord ends at 14, and the horse's tail is all this other wiring that comes down. The very bottom wire, if you follow my finger down, all the way down to the end of your coccyx, which is about right here, there'd be one little wire, one little nerve that ends at the bottom there. What do you call the very bottom nerve? Filum terminale, literally thread end. So conus medullaris ends the cord, filum terminale ends the cauda equina. So they're not the same thing. So the cord ends here, but the nerves end there. Make sense? So on a typical test question, where does the spinal cord end? We want that one, not this one. Make sense?
And that one down there is the
Filum terminale. The conus medullaris is the end of the cord. Up around L, whatever.
Or
L1.
the other one's the bottom of the nerves.
Yeah, bottom of the nerves. The cauda equina ends, the horse's tail drags below the tail. So, okay? So then denticulate ligaments, I'm going to show you on a different model, but that's what glues your spinal cord into the vertebrae. So I'm going to change models on you. Go back to this one. I'm going to go to this one. My favorite model, hint, hint. Alright, so we're going to go to page 56 and identify a lot of stuff on here. So, first thing we're going to notice is the spinal cord's in here, this is your vertebrae. If you look carefully, it's impossible to see easily, but right here and here, those are ligaments gluing my spinal cord into my bone. What do you call those ligaments that look like teeth? Denticulate ligaments. So those are the denticulates are gluing your spinal cord literally within the cavity there. But then we're going to name all these other things. So here's one of the problems. You can use dorsal or ventral, which is what I learned, or you can use anterior and posterior. They're synonyms. But some books and people and teachers use some versus others. So you'll notice on your list, sometimes posterior and anterior are in parentheses, sometimes dorsal and ventral are. They're the same word. So don't freak out if I say dorsal. You can say posterior. Just tradition kind of more than anything. But the hardest part is remembering the differences. So the butterfly, those are the, quote, the horns. The wiring that comes out of the spinal cord, those are the roots like a tree. So if you keep the horn versus the root, you can understand it. So, the butterfly, moose's rat, you called it. What color is it? Gray matter, meaning it's not myelinated. The white stuff would be white matter, which means it is myelinated. So you have a gray and white. So if you go down to the gray matter part, those are going to be the horns with the butterfly. So if I'm going to point to right here, which horn is that one?
Dorsal.
You can say dorsal or posterior. Pick one. So one of the things you have to do with the spinal cord is know which end is front and back. Because if you get it wrong, you're doomed, right? So you're going to figure out, okay, a couple things. If you have the bone, hopefully you remember that's in the back side. That'd be helpful. The other thing to notice is the front has a big line up it, big gash, big fissure. The back doesn't. The butterfly looks a little oblong. But try to remember which end's front and back before you do stuff. So this is your posterior or dorsal horn. This part would be my what?
Anterior or ventral horn.
Very good. And this part on the side would be my lateral horn if it has one. Not all of them do. So you're going to have the horns of the butterfly, of the gray. Then you have this gray thing between the two halves of the butterfly.
That's the commissure.
Gray commissure. Yes, the commissure. Connection. Commission. That's your gray commissure. Right?
Can you show me that?
Yeah, from that right there.
It's the thing that frames kind of the central canal.
Indeed, in the center of the commissure is the central canal. So the central canal is in the middle of the gray commissure that connects the two butterfly halves together. Right? So now I'm going to point to something different. I'm going to point to this yellow wire that's coming out of the horn and going here. What is that? That's a root. That's a dorsal root or posterior root because like a tree, it's the root. This one here, number 17, must be the ventral or you can say anterior root. So horns make roots. So 18's dorsal, 17's ventral root. And if you follow number 18, you'll notice it makes a big bump at 19. What do you call a big group?
What?
It's actually ganglion here. So that's the dorsal root ganglion. That's another way you can tell the back side is the dorsal root ganglion's on the dorsal side. So if I look over here, I follow it back, it's over here. So you have a dorsal horn to dorsal root ganglion. Ventral horn to ventral root, there's no ganglion. Makes sense? So another clue for back versus front. Make sense?
Can you do the roots again, please? Sorry.
Sure. So dorsal root to dorsal root ganglion. Ventral root does not have the ganglion. It should be under that, or bottom side. Okay, now we're going to do the white stuff. So the white stuff is myelin. They have different names. So let's find the anterior median fissure. Can anyone find where that is?
Yeah.
Tell me when you think you know. Here?
No.
That's
I'll just-
posterior, but
Aha!
straight down.
Right there. So literally front up the middle crack. Anterior median fissure. The big line up the front. The front has the fissure is how I remember it. Because the back has a depression. And how do you say depressed? You sulk. So that's the posterior median sulcus. So the back has a depression, the front has a crack. The fissure's in the front, the sulcus in the back. But the back also has a septum. What is a septum?
A separator.
Separator or a wall. So number 48 here in the picture, that is the posterior median septum, or medial septum. So the front has a fissure, the back has a wall. Far so good? Those are in your middle. Now we have these F words. More F words. Okay. Posterior lateral anterior funiculus. You can also call these columns. It is a legitimate synonym. But my lamino is funiculus. So funiculus is the white stuff. So I'm going to find some white stuff here. Which white stuff is that?
Dorsal.
Dorsal, or the better word would be posterior is what we use. The white stuff here, lateral funiculus. The white stuff here.
Anterior funiculus.
Very good.
So it's all part of the white matter.
The white matter, which are called columns. So again, front and back is important. So I have my my ventral horn with my anterior funiculus, lateral horn, lateral funiculus, posterior horn, or dorsal, posterior funiculus. The funiculus are the white, the horns are the gray. Make sense? And in the horns would be, in the tracks, let's try that again. In the funiculus would be the tracks, which we haven't gone over yet in lecture. We're doing okay on the white versus gray and that thing. So what we're going to do is change models now and do it again, a different model to look at. Because there are two I could ask you with. I'm an evil bastard and you don't know which